Hello everyone. Getting back to another game analysis. This time I'm playing with white, and I typically play the slow Italian, the Gioco Pianissimo version when I am playing with white. However, in this case, you will see that the opponent plays the French defense, and typically you have to like modify your moves a little bit um, in order to play against the French defense. So the opponent plays e6. Again, it's a 30-minute game. The opponent is rated 1940. My rating here is approximately 2020, so 2020. So he plays e6. I go b4, which is typically the next move um, in both Caro-Can as well as in French defense. In Caro-Can, typically the move that gets played here is d6, and then you do the same move, which is d5, which is d4, capturing the center, and then they go d5. In French defense, it's the other way around. They play e6, you play d5, and the next move is typically uh, d5. So the idea here in typical French defense, main lines is to play knight to c3, which I do, um, and then they play knight to f6, and this is like um, you know uh, the ideal way to play French defense. And here there are multiple lines in which you can just advance your pawn. You can start protecting your pawn with this bishop move. There are multiple ways in French defense main lines to play this position. At this, but my my understanding of French defense is not great, and that's why I did not want to get into preparation of a person who plays French defense very regularly. I started learning the Vinova variation where the bishop comes out to b4, and there are several sharp lines in it. It's not a very safe, stable position at all. And I've seen a lot of times that black players typically like to play that variation. So here I started, just simplifying, make this position as easy to deal with as possible. This was my second game of the day, and I was not looking really to have very sharp positions. I wanted to have a little bit of an easy game. So I just took on ed5. He took back, and I just played normal development move knight to f3. The idea is to develop the light square bishop next, get castled, and then let's play chess, right? He moves to h6. Yeah, so this move is again like he's protecting his. He's just trying to control the g5 square. Um, but yeah, I mean, my normal course of action. Typically, I don't like playing all these, wasteful bishop moves sometimes to uh, g5 and then to b5, trying to pin the knight. If there are reasons to do that, why not? But that is not like my normal way to play. So the idea was pretty simple, to clear out uh, this particular rank to start thinking about castling. So yeah, and then again there was no attack on uh, this pawn. So as a single defender of this pawn of the knight is okay. There is no attack on this knight to pin it. So I thought that let's take up this good diagonal for the bishop rather than taking up playing bishop to e2, um, overprotecting this knight, overprotecting this pawn, which is not needed given the position at this point. So I play knight to d3, sorry, bishop to d3. He protects his pawn on c6. Sorry, he protects his pawn on d5 by playing c6. Um, Here again, he has made like two unnecessary, in my opinion, at this point, uh, pawn moves, which basically allows me to start thinking about development. At this point in time, if you see, I have castled, I have three pieces which are developed, and he just has one piece which is developed and a bunch of pawn moves. So I'm clearly like developmentally ahead in this position, and it's just about trying to making sure that this development advantage holds up for the rest of the game. So now he's of course trying to castle. Um, I take this opportunity to reroute my knight to uh, G G3, because that's the idea I typically play. That knight comes here, then it comes here, then I push this knight here, then this knight can come here getting protected, and then you have two knights protecting each other. You have this bishop protecting this knight. Sorry, let me draw the lines again. And then the queen can eventually also come in here and start looking at this particular starting to look at this particular file. So that was the idea here. He castled. I continued with my plan. Then he played bishop here, bishop to g4 move. The best move here for me is just the computer suggests me to start protecting this pawn, play uh, h3. So I like this h3 move because I think after you do this h3 move, the bishop has to retreat back into the same diagonal. It prevents knight from on the in the future jumping into this square. So it's a very constructive move. And by the way, after you play this, which I do, the bishop can't move back here because uh, with your you can capture with your knight. The knight can recapture. So mm, the knight can recapture here, but then you can move your knight here, gaining a tempo on this knight. So it's not ideal, I would say. For him to just lose his light square bishop and give me a great square for my knight in, uh, in this e5 square. So he realizes that he moves back his bishop. So just think about it. He could have just played his bishop move here uh, and not given me this opportunity to push this pawn with tempo, which is a very natural uh, move in this kind of position, uh, preventing also the knight from jumping into the square in the future. So he moves back. I start with my plan. The plan was to again go from here to here, then from here to here. But at this point, he has some really nice moves. Some really like normal nice moves. Sorry. Um, so that's what he does. He plays this knight here. What it does is now the bishop opens up its attack on this particular knight. But the computer is suggesting me to just to ignore this and just play my piece here, which I did not do. I um, captured here, uh, and I thought if he captures back here, I can push my knight to here, have this, both of these knights protected by each other, and you can't have any pawn pushes to displace my knight because by the and in that case, this pawn becomes weak and I can capture it with my knight. And this bishop also looks into this pawn, so you can't think about preparing this move, playing your king first and then pushing this knight, pushing this pawn, because then you have two pieces attacking this pawn, so it's not so that's not even an option. So even that is not an option. So he plays here. I think he takes my knight, and I just replace my bishop back to where it came from. Now the idea here is that if he takes, I can take back and open this entire file for my uh, rook. I can later on play queen here as well. Uh, so the attack on this particular file is immense. There's also sacrificial ideas on this particular pawn, opening up the structure even more. So as you can understand, this is very different from the first game that we played, which was very positional. This is pretty sharp. and anything can happen in this position. So he made this pawn move, um, and of course, because of the development edge that I have, even at this point, even though he hasn't made any like blunder or anything like that, you see the computer always already gives me an advantage of a significant advantage, 1.5 pawns. So here the computer suggests the move rook to rook e1. Um, but my idea was that after the bishop takes here, then once this file opens up, and I take back, this file opens up, and I don't have the rook there, right? So that's why probably I didn't was kind of had some tunnel vision, didn't want to attack the bishop, which is now weak immediately, and I played a move queen to h5, and this again wasn't a bad move at all. My As you can see, it hardly impacts the valuation bar, um, and here, um, the idea is that I'm attacking this piece. I'm attacking. I have like a triple attack on this particular pawn now. So if the queen moves to start defending this pawn, there can be like opportunities to attack this particular bishop in the future. Um, so the best move, as the computer suggests, is to um, bring the queen here, right? That's the best possible defense. If the queen still defends this particular bishop, it defends this particular pawn. There is no ideas because I had the attack here. There's no ideas of playing um, queen to e8, so trying to exchange my queen because then his bishop falls here. So, but the move that he played was a was a little rough. The move he played was f4, and at this point in time, the best move that I had was simply to go um, queen to f6. And if he took, the idea was to simply give a check here as he brings his king back, recapture with a check. Uh, However, there was this bishop move back, and this is something that I had calculated. So I thought that I'm losing a piece, but I'm not regaining the piece back immediately because the bishop can go back, and that's why I did not play this idea. However, it seems that this was the best idea, and there were several other pawns which are hanging in this position, which I did not see in this particular position. So I did not see, so I did not play this move, which was apparently the best. I played my knight uh, f5, and of course, the valuation from plus 6.8 drops to plus 1. So, yeah, plus zero point 0.9 actually. So, yeah, this was a little bit of a miss from my side, but given my level, you can't expect me to calculate that deep. So, or be able to calculate that deep, rather. So, he just takes my piece. I take it back with my bishop, um, and then he plays the queen out to f6. Queen f6 is a very good move. Again, it attacks um, the bishop, it attacks this pawn. The computer suggests a move like f queen g5. Um, you know, but again, you know, it's not always possible to make these very accurate moves all the time. I thought this move was not bad either. So what I played was kind of forced. I retreated my bishop, but I made a slight mistake of retreating it to a square, which was probably not ideal. I was thinking about retreating it this side or this side, uh, this direction, this direction, and I thought that I wanted to have the ability to check the king later on by just playing this move and checking it. once I have my rook on this particular file. Uh, so that's why my idea was to push my bishop to g4. By the way, now this pawn completely hangs, so he can take it. Um, but before that, he needs to save his bishop, right? Because the bishop is hanging otherwise. That's why it's normal for him. Bishop to g5. That's what he plays. Now I started getting concerned about my queen getting trapped. So if he just pushes his pawn here, if he gets one more move, I play something random here. He can just push his pawn, and my queen is completely trapped. So the only way to save myself is to play this check, give him this free piece, and then make this retreat. Yeah. So and that's completely losing. So um, what the computer suggests here is to counter attack on the bishop. But then the idea is that what after he just takes, right? So the computer suggests that we take this particular pawn. So a pawn for a pawn, and then once he captures this pawn, this bishop is no longer defended. You take. But the problem, even if you see these moves and you see, okay, one pawn for another pawn, one bishop for another bishop, you never know, right? If this eventual position is actually good or bad. Mm-hmm. Um, and it is just slightly better for one meet, but you know, uh, I can only determine that, to be very frank with you, by looking at the evaluation bar, because he clearly has a decent attack on this particular pawn. If he can double up his rooks on this particular file, I think he has the attack, not me. So uh, my opponent. So what my opponent has the attack is what should be gender neutral here. So the next move that I played was to just make sure that my queen has enough space to retreat or move when that pawn pushes later. So I pushed back my bishop. He took my, and of course now he has enough time and enough opportunity to take that particular uh, pawn. And this is the first time in the game that actually black is better. He's simply better, not much though, as you can see in the evaluation bar, but black is better here. So I just started placing my pieces in open diagonals, sorry, open lines. Rook belongs to open lines. That's where I put it. um, because the move again that the computer is suggesting is not making a bunch of sense to me, because once he moves it back, my question is, what now? Right? So it's not the targets, or it's not uh, like directly clear to me, because this pawn is, by the way, protected twice already. So even if I end up playing the best move on the computer, it is still protected twice, with the potential of getting protected three eyes by this bishop here. Yeah. This isn't a dark square. You have a dark square bishop on the board. You don't even have to like calculate so deep to understand whether there is a potential for the bishop to protect the pawn. You can just assume that it can probably do that. So, so let me get back to the game. He takes. I place my rook in the open file, and my evaluation deteriorates even further. It's clearly a mistake, but it's clearly a mistake. But there is probably a very long-winded way to take advantage of it, which is not apparent right away, which uh, is not apparent right away, which kind of gives me the opportunity to save myself maybe later on. So he makes the best move here, which is bringing the knight to d7. I uh, place my uh, bishop to attack that knight, open up my open up my rook's um, file. Is the one open file on the board, and my rook is on that file. Uh, the next move that he makes is uh, is probably not that good. So the move that the computer suggests, which is knight to f6, is completely fine for him. Still has almost 2 pawns advantage. Uh, but I knew that I can protect my my queen is not getting trapped, nor is my bishop. So the plan that I had was to play simply a check here, uh, make the king move, and then probably retreat back here or here or here or here or here. There are lots of opportunities for me to retreat back. So yeah, I didn't think it's too big a deal. It just I didn't think it was too big a deal. But the move that he played eventually, I think was really really bad. And I was fortunate enough to find a tactic that the queen protects this piece, and the queen is does not have a lot of open space for it to move around. So if I just attack the queen here, what happens is the queen no longer has a square in which it can protect itself as well as protect the knight. So queen simply move to the most threatening square as possible. But if you see, even though my rooks are not connected, the uh, the squares king, the queen can eventually land onto this square are all protected. So queen can possibly come here and possibly come here. This particular entire diagonal is protected, so there is no chance of doing that. It can't come here because king takes it. Uh, so there is no like heavy counter attack that is coming. So it's important to do these calculations in positions which are completely winning here for me. I'm just winning an extra piece. So I just take the knight. You have to give yourself enough time to think through these positions again. It's winning, but you still need to win them. Uh, and then this is a problem, right? So he's just a piece down, a minor piece down, right? Um, his queen is very active. His bishop is not that bad. His bishop is not that bad, and you can start thinking about. Mm, you can start thinking about opportunities and constructively, use your pawn majority here. But the trick is not to blunder and continue the game as long as possible. The problem with this position is not this position with my opponent at this point in time is that uh, he just has 3 minutes on the clock. So in a 30-minute game with no increments, he is on his last 3 minutes. So he made a terrible blunder. He just moved his king uh, to h8, and the the very natural move here is to just take the bishop because this pawn is pinned. It can't be captured. It can't be captured. Look. So yeah, now I'm two pieces up. The computer gives me a 10-point advantage, which is equivalent to being queen up. So he absolutely has no other you know, uh, tactics or resort to think about winning this game at this point in time. It's next to lost. It's next to lost. So he just resigns here. Uh, so yeah, very different game from the one that I had shared before. The one that I shared before had only one blunder, which was from my opponent. I fortunately did not make any and was managed to utilize his one blunder to win the game. This was more tactical. We had more blunders. I had one blunder. My opponent has had a couple. So yeah, it went into the tactical territory that where you start having some blunders. Um, there was another game that I played today which I lost, but it was a very sharp Sicilian line. There's lots of learnings from that, so I had to think through the video a little bit before I start talking about that game. So we'll definitely try to put that up also. Um, just for my benefit as well, because I think there's a bunch of things that we can learn from that game. So, yep, that's probably the next video. Thanks for staying through this one. Take care. Bye.